Hey guys, morning. Listen, maybe most of you have probably heard by now, but it was the breaking news just this morning. Robert Mugabe is no more, guys. The great leader of Zimbabwe, if you put it. Robert is dead. Robert passed away. Robert is no more. I thought I should talk about this because if you look at the history of Robert Mugabe, his last maybe 20 or so years overshadowed what he did by fighting for freedom against the oppressors. So he finally died, 95 years old, died older than Nelson Mandela when he died. But I think his reign was over before he was removed from the seat because Mugabe was very old. Let's be honest. Remember, Mugabe was in the struggle, and then they realized that this is the guy who is more vocal than everyone, and then they made sure that he doesn't reproduce. That's the factual news. So they made sure that he doesn't reproduce because he was gonna produce the same leader who had a hard head like him. So Mugabe came to dominance in the 1980s when Zimbabwe took its independence, and he was the first leader of Zimbabwe. And then he went on since in the 80s until 2017 when they forced him to go down, and they didn't just force him to go down from his seat. They only did that because they realized he didn't have that power to overtake them. So they waited for him to be weak before they took the leadership. And looking at it, we can just classify Mugabe's leadership in few categories, because if you remember too well, Mugabe is the person responsible for the collapse of Zimbabwean economy. The guy had so much to offer to that nation, to that country. Remember, they had all these minerals, the tourist attractions. They had the farming. They could produce the best tobacco. But then Mugabe came in. Instead of looking at what the country needs, he looked at himself, and then the country collapsed. He didn't care about his people. They still voted for him, but one thing I would think it was that Mugabe used cheating when they were voting, because if you remember too well, that guy Morgan Changarai came so close to winning. He even won the election, but they turned it and then they did re-elections. And they beat him up. He was the only leader Zimbabwe would look at and say, if only we listened to ourselves and voted for that guy. But Mugabe wouldn't have taken any nonsense because he wanted his leadership. It's like saying, I fought for this freedom, I'm gonna die with this freedom. Oh well, that's what happens. And as much as we can say everyone who's dead deserves the utmost respect, which is true. Mugabe deserves this also, may his soul rest in peace. But we must also look at what happened. How come Zimbabwe came to be the poorest country in Africa? It's because of the leadership that didn't care about its people. The people always looked at the person to lead, but the leaders never really cared about the people. So now Mugabe is no more, and then they have Mnangagwa. What is he gonna do? Nothing. He was the commander when Mugabe was in leadership. So now, are you telling me that the same guy who was in Mugabe's cluster would then change? He won't. We can see that because he has been since 2017. There's nothing that's changing. Same old thing, same old complaints. The same way we complained about Mugabe, they still complain about the new guy. So It's a damn shame for Zimbabwe because they had so much to offer, and now the only thing they can pray for is a change, which we are not sure if it's gonna come anytime. So Mugabe, you've done your bit, old man. May your soul rest in peace. But your history won't be good in the books. You'll be characterized by the killings in Zimbabwe, the 2007, 2006, 2008 killings, the poverty in Zimbabwe, where people will die because of poverty. Now, if you look at Zimbabwe, they're struggling with electricity. Zimbabwe is struggling with everything. Their currency is just a flop. If you compare it to the South African currency, it's a flop. All because leaders didn't care about their people. Now when Mugabe is dead, who is going to suffer is the same people that have been looking for him to make change, and the same people who have suffered under him are still going to suffer. So Mugabe is going to be resting easy, resting in peace, because we have seen there were latest, I think in March, there were pictures of him. You could look at Mugabe. He was old, and you could just see that he probably lost his memory. He couldn't even make one or two. So you could see that he has had his time. He's lived his life, and 95 years is a bonus. I've yet to come across any African leader who lived past 95. Maybe they might be there. I don't know them. But 95 years is something else. He was just short of 5 years to reach his century. So, Mr. Robert, we are mourning. I'm not sure how the fellow Zimbabweans would react to this, but the thing is, there is no celebrating anything because people have to look at building. Remember, Mugabe was out of the picture. So when he was out of the picture, there was no blaming him and say, this is Mugabe, this is that. He's out of the picture. You have Mnangagwa who you have to build with, but still there's no change. So as much as we are mourning Mugabe, we are still mourning Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe doesn't have a leap of faith. When is Zimbabwe going to change and be a country that we used to know, with a good economy, even better than South Africa? But then again, these are our leaders who fought for freedom. By the way, if it wasn't for Mugabe and his group, there wouldn't have been freedom in Zimbabwe. There wouldn't have been change in South Africa, because the change that Mugabe came up with, it made sure that even other countries, the oppressors, are starting to take notice to say, wait a minute, these people are serious. So Mugabe contributed a lot to our freedom, but he also crushed our freedom. The same house that you built for people to live safely in, you crushed the house and said, I built this house. Today we are mourning the guy who made sure that we live in peace, and then in turn destroyed the peace that he built. So Mr. Mugabe, may the Lord be with you. And he joins the leaders, the likes of Nelson Mandela and all these guys who fought for freedom. He joins them as one of the leaders, the leaders who were the first presidents of the independence for Zimbabwe and other countries. So, Mr. Mugabe, your loss is everyone's loss as a human being. But really, we could have wished for you to die with Zimbabwe being in the good hands, Zimbabwe's economy being changed. But unfortunately, it won't change. Nothing will change. People are still struggling. There's nothing people can say. All they can say is that we live, we continue with life. All we can hope is for the people to have peace. Even though with the current situation in South Africa, It doesn't change anything. It has been a long week of bad news, and Friday, Mugabe just decided to go. So rest in peace, Robert Gabriel Mugabe. You will surely be missed. Cheers, guys.